From the depths of the vault, this is Eerie's Vault Live, your number one stream for the uncanny, the weird, and the unexplained. Good evening, everybody. Good afternoon, good morning, good middle of the night, whatever it is, wherever you are, welcome to the show. This is Eerie's Vault Live, and I am your host, Eerie. We'll be opening up the lines very shortly, so if you want to be on the show, I'll tell you how to do that in just a moment. But let's start out with a shout out to my patrons, shall we? Adam Mitchell, Baroque Lobster, Buster Piles, Farson's Finest, Todd Van Voris, Greg Russell, E.J. Osborne, Emu Cat, Andrew Dewey, Catman, Gregory, Keith Say, Pamela Peffer, Pill Collins, that's right, Aaron Osborne, Amanda McNeil, Ben Hurl, Chris Slee, Craig McClellan, Ginger Ninja, Heather Mond Jones, Iron Bug, It's Me, Matt Carter, Melv, Natalie Leach, Paul Redruth, Sawboss, Vincent Hegeland, Wayne Stedman, and Zach T. Thank you all for joining the Patreon. It's great to see such an interest in the vault. You know, when I started this little YouTube channel, I never imagined we'd be here like this, with all these patrons and all these viewers and a live call-in show. You know, it's amazing what can happen if you just start to do something. Well, let's begin with this week's Eerie news. Renowned paranormal investigator Dan Rivera, known for touring with the infamous Annabelle doll and affiliated with the New England Society for Psychic Research, was found dead in July. The Adams County coroner has now confirmed that his death was due to natural, cardiac-related causes consistent with pre-existing heart issues. Notably, of course, the notorious Annabelle doll was not present in his hotel room at the time. No foul play, no paranormal influence was found. This conclusion puts to rest, of course, the swirling speculation around supernatural involvement in his sudden passing. In Darlington, a strange formation of 5 orange lights has been recorded by Danny Shaw on his way home from work. Theories range at the moment from laser light shows to paramilitary flares. Now, this video has been posted on to the Eerie's Vault Facebook page today, so if you fancy checking that out, you can do so there. And of course, you can let me know what you think about it right there. They certainly do look like flares to me, I have to say, or perhaps lanterns, but they are intriguing nonetheless. In northern Argentina, ranchers near the town of Tintina in Santiago del Estero say something unknown has been killing their cattle cleanly, quickly, and without the usual signs you'd expect from scavengers. Local reports start on the 23rd of August this year, when the owner of Estancia dos Leones, Eduardo Maidana, who is also a municipal councillor, alerted Police Station 44 after finding more than a dozen animals dead under unusual circumstances. By the 28th of August, the tally being reported had risen to 23 head of cattle, with repeatable wound patterns and claims of little to no blood at the scene. Several outlets also note residents talking about luces extrañas, which is strange lights, I may have butchered that, I don't know, over the fields on the same nights. In a radio interview carried by a local site, Maidana described a ranch hand encountering a creature bigger than a dog with a very unusual head, and later finding a calf slick with saliva. Details that have pushed this story into chupacabra territory in their regional headlines. Here's another story I forgot about, so I thought I'd take a look at it today. In Mexico, those headline-grabbing alien mummies, remember those? Well, they didn't survive scientific scrutiny, and I'm quite sure I expected that, unfortunately. Otherwise, I wouldn't have forgotten about them, would I? I would have known all about them. The story began in September of 2023, if you can imagine it being that long ago, when presenter Jaime Maussan unveiled two small bodies during a hearing in Mexico's Congress, prompting global attention and, of course, immediate skepticism. Mexico's UNAM was quickly dragged into the debate after being cited for carbon-14 tests. UNAM clarified it had only performed age dating for a client and did not authenticate anything as non-human, countering claims that the university had proved aliens. The decisive turn came in January last year, actually, in Peru, where forensic experts with the prosecutor's office presented their findings. The seized figures, similar to those shown in Mexico, are modern assembled dolls made from paper, glue, metal, and a mix of human and animal bones, not extraterrestrial. Follow-ups in Mexico, including a second congressional session later in 2023, didn't overturn any verdicts, and in 24 they were not overturned either, and to date no credible scientific body has produced anything other than these being made up. It disappointed me, I have to say. Bottom line, as of September this year, like this week, these alien mummies remain debunked. Now, I must admit, I fall for stories like that every time. I get excited every time, and I'm constantly let down. But wasn't that the same guy who was behind the chupacabra in the barn finding? Wasn't there some sort of monkey skeleton screwed onto something else? That name rings a bell. You never know what you're going to dig up. And speaking of digging stuff up, a mummy has been exhumed and was found to be embalmed in chocolate and nuts. Yes, you heard me right there. It was embalmed in chocolate and nuts. Esteemed researchers cannot agree on the reason for this strange burial ritual, but they have, however, settled on a name nonetheless. They call it the Pharaoh Rocher. Got an encounter story that you want to share? Ever seen a UFO or a ghost? Are you a time traveller or a non-human humanoid? Or maybe you've just got an opinion about a known encounter that you would like to share. Whichever it may be, simply send a WhatsApp message to 07903 775 899 to enter the callback queue. That's 07903 775 899. Just give me a brief outline of what you want to say and a name that you'd like me to use on air, and then stay ready for my callback. Or if you're more on the shy side, you can still take part by emailing eeriesvault@gmail.com with your story, and I will read it on air for you. It really is that easy. Some of you are old hands at this now. Let's take a look at the chat. I can see it buzzing away in the corner there. We've got Theme Queen UK. Good evening, Theme Queen. Welcome. Baby with a Laser is here too. Hello, baby. Tools. That's a very good name, Tools, and a nice picture of a dog as well. Been looking forward to this, says Tools. So have I have to say. It's a good way to end the week, isn't it? Buster Piles says, Vaultsters assemble. Yes, indeed. What would we take the form of if we all combined powers? That's what I want to know. Jamie's here. Good evening, Jamie. And we've got LJ90256 who says, hello. Well, hello to you too. Welcome to the show. Internet Machine, good to see you. Welcome. Who else have we got? Aching Plums. I never will not laugh when I read that for the first time. Hello, Aching Plums. Ron. Good evening, Ron. Welcome to the show. Who else do we have here? Milia, 1 times 9 to the power of 10. I think that's what that says. Evening. Well, good evening to you. Darren as well. Good evening, Darren. Welcome to the show. Liz. Hi, everyone. This show has become one of my highlights of my week. Well, that's very nice to hear. Thank you ever so much indeed for that. Me too. KB is here. Well-deserved popularity, Mr. A. Glad to make it to the live show this week. Very glad to have you and welcome. Joto Tale, under unusual circus dances. Now, that must be a unusual circumstances thing. I wish I'd seen that whilst I was saying it. I would have laughed immediately. Who else have we got? Not, oh, hang on now, we're just, hang on, says Mr. Eerie, hang on. Not all the mummies have been shown to be hoaxes, okay. Despite the debunking of several specimens, a team led by Dr. Jose Zalche claims to have studied 21 bodies over 6 years, using X-rays, CT scans, DNA analysis, and more. They argue that the mummies are 100% real biological organisms, with some allegedly showing signs of pregnancy and internal organs. Yes, I recall some of the images of those things, let's call them. Didn't they have eggs inside them or something? Now, I need to look this up. Dr. Jose Zalche, or however I am to pronounce that. Mummies. I'm going to put that in my read this later. Oh, so this is from October 2024. Let's read this once we get past the Daily Mail's nonsense advertisements. The short video documents the moment one physician carefully pulls a suspected alien implant from the severed 3-fingered hand with tweezers. Goodness me, we shall have to cover this on a video. That's I had no idea about all this. Right, I won't watch it now because I am rather busy, obviously, with tonight's show. Now, before we get on to our special topics for tonight, you might recall Dave's vanishing church story. Well, Dave is hot on the trail of a new investigative angle, and since that update, I haven't heard anything else. Now, ordinarily, that wouldn't be too much of a concern, you know, but when we're dealing with a fairly mystical place and disappearing buildings, then it does make me wonder if everything is okay. So, Dave, if you're out there, let us know. I've got visions of you vanishing along with the church, so please do be careful out there. Our special topic number 1 for tonight is predictions, let's say. So, or more specifically, your predictions. So, I want your paranormal predictions, if you don't mind. What's going to turn out to be true? What's going to happen next on UFO disclosure? When will we get Bigfoot proof? And when's the next Nessie sighting going to be? All that sort of stuff. I'm really interested in your predictions, whether they're very left field or whether you've really got serious opinions about when things will happen and why. Then you get in touch and you tell me. You can use the chat, but I must say the chat moves fast and I don't always catch what's in there. You can call on WhatsApp, which is 07903 775 899, or you could email to eeriesvault@gmail.com with your predictions. And it'd be really nice to hear some of these, and then we can see what we're all going to be talking about next Friday, can't we? So drop it in the chat, and if you're on the phone, you know, we'll grab yours as well, and then we'll see who hits the nail on the head, shall we? Predictions. I'll have to think about my own. Aside from predicting, probably there'll be another documentary that claims to blow the lid off whistleblowers or something like that will appear, but actually will tell us nothing new, I think that's a pretty safe bet, don't you? Special topic number 2 is an artifact from the vault, and today this is Richard Cavendish's book, Mysteries of the Universe. And in this section he writes, "Were the gods astronauts?" So once interest in flying saucers had been aroused, it didn't take long for people to wonder whether they might belong to the gods, and the so-called astrotheology of Erich von Däniken and his followers was born. Däniken, who was one of the most forceful and best-known exponents of this belief, suggested that the makers of man were astronauts, and that God himself was an astronaut. He argued that the visions of the prophets were really space flights, and that God, who appeared to those prophets, was an extraterrestrial. His best-known book, Chariots of the Gods, was first published in 1968 in German and later in many other languages. It was translated into English in 1969. In it, Däniken suggests that mankind had been repeatedly visited by alien beings from other worlds, and that in the past human beings had mistaken them for gods. The theory was quickly taken up by many others, and books and articles supporting the idea were published in rapid succession. Critics repeatedly pointed out that Däniken's ideas were based on false claims, however, and misunderstandings, but for a time his books enjoyed some tremendous popularity. Meanwhile, excavations on Easter Island were claimed to have revealed that the gigantic stone figures were created by extraterrestrials. The Moai statues, it was suggested, were built as landing markers for spacecraft. The stone grave of the Mayan priest king Pakal at Palenque in Mexico, the design on the lid has been interpreted by Erich von Däniken as a representation of an astronaut at the controls of a rocket. This astronaut theory supplies what's possibly the most rational explanation for what is otherwise really inexplicable. The Mayan priest king is seen in the centre of this image. He's seated, his body's bent forward. It looks like his foot is pressing a pedal and that his hands are manipulating some sort of weird controls. And at the top is a representation of a complicated piece of equipment which has jet outlets, it seems, at the bottom. The entire object is filled with strange ornaments and scrolls and decorative elements. But what's important is that the guy is portrayed in an absolutely sort of space flight position. The deep symbolism around the priest's figure has been described as a representation of the tree of life, but it could equally be that an ancient artist has faithfully recorded what he saw, a man at the controls of a spacecraft. Of course, historians immediately interpret this picture as mythological, but it's surely more sensible, is it not, to see it as a concrete representation of something that was right in front of the artist. The Mayan culture, in many respects, it's the most enigmatic of all pre-Columbian cultures. It still dishes up these mysteries. Why did the Mayans measure the orbit of Venus within an accuracy of seconds? Why did they make astronomical calculations and measurements far in excess of what we think were their everyday needs? The astronaut theory supplies an explanation for this. Extraterrestrials might well have landed among the Mayans and influenced their culture. If you accept this idea, the development of humanity was not due only to evolution, but also to intervention. The astronaut theory implies that our ancestors were not abandoned to their own resources, but that extraterrestrial beings intervened in our fate and helped us on our way. The Mayan priest is seen as a man operating controls. They, the extraterrestrials, might well have been regarded by the Mayans as gods then, and indeed, maybe they were more than human. The Earth was inhabited by an inferior, ape-like, underdeveloped life, the Neanderthal man, essentially. Probably some sort of genetic experiment in selective breeding would have happened. I mean, we were eating, roots and leaves and raw meat, perhaps. We had shaggy hair, strong jaws, Didn't we live in caves? All of the stuff we were told in school. Didn't work, didn't sew, didn't weave, didn't spin, had no fixed address, although really that sort of stuff has been debunked later on. I think Neanderthal man has been discovered to have had artwork and clothing, etc. But this is not me talking. I'm reading you this from the book, of course, and it's an old book. It states then that Neanderthal man disappeared and that Cro-Magnons appeared and a new race was created. Obviously, we were not told the whole story. The old text is brief, condensed, and lacking in precision. Biblical stories and myths and traditions from all over the world are full of the idea that man was created by beings from the heavens who visited the earth in fiery chariots and flying vehicles or something of the kind. That probability that extraterrestrial beings visited the earth and at some time or other tinkered with humanity should be taken seriously. The possibility shouldn't really be ruled out of hand, says Mr. Cavendish. It is a fascinating area of thought, isn't it? And it's not the first time I've heard that, human beings, or rather the human race, as it were, or our ancestors, rather, were tinkered with because we were living hunter-gatherer lifestyles, as, well, Neanderthals, Cro-Magnons, whatever the bush of life happens to be. And then all of a sudden, in a, chronologically blink of an eye, we began inventing the wheel, we invented fire, and then suddenly we're off. And many, many theories point to the possibility of some genetic tinkering with us, which, I can't really say, yes, that's right, no, it isn't, because I have open mind about these things, and, it sounds reasonable, doesn't it? It sounds reasonable. But the problem with reasonable theories is there's a lot of them. And I enjoy just discussing them and thinking about them rather than getting an answer. I don't know about you guys, but that's really what I enjoy. But that book is great. It's an old book. It's called Mysteries of the Universe. It's one of these big hardback sort of it's published by St. Michael's, apparently, and it's by Richard Cavendish. It's very, very good. I think it's got something to do with Marks and Spencer, the publishing house. It's a pretty old book. What's the date on it? Let's take a look. See if we can find the date without moving too far away from the microphone. It says it was published, it's in 1981, which is a heck of a lot longer ago than you would care to think, actually. What else do we have in the chat then? So, the curse of Pharaoh Rocher, yes, causing the opposite of chronic wasting disease, that's right. Paul's here. Paul Williams says, are these tridactyl mummies from Peru? Maybe some hitherto unknown hominid? Yes, and that, of course, is another option, isn't it? That they are not from elsewhere, but they are from here. Mike says, great video, Sheffield UFO, thank you. I found out about that Sheffield UFO on this live show, actually, and I'm really sorry that I can't remember who told me. It might have been Jamie, potentially, but because I have the vanishing message set up on WhatsApp, they're all gone in 24 hours, so I can't look back to figure out who it was. Who do we have here? We've got Fleur has joined the chat. Says, hi, Eerie. Hi, Fleur. Welcome to the show. And let me just catch up on the chat. Yes, it makes sense that ancient people would see them as gods. And it comes down to the old, what we cannot understand, we can't explain, doesn't it? And if you showed Bluetooth technology to somebody from I don't know, 50 years ago, that would seem like witchcraft of some sort, wouldn't it? So the case for previous eras of people mistaking, technological things for spiritual things is a strong argument. However, there's also the argument that previous civilizations may well not have been as basic, let's say, as we first thought. Particularly all this talk around the pyramids and how they were made, and this thing about the Sphinx actually having been a lion, and there was a lion's head on it, and there's so much of it buried under the sand, all that sort of stuff. I find that really, really fascinating. That's real sort of Joe Rogan podcast stuff. What's the chap's name? Nick. Oh, is it Graham Hancock? Is it Graham Hancock? He talks about that a lot, I think. Be nice to get some of those guys on the show, wouldn't it? That'd be really good. Okay, we're at the bottom of the hour. Let's take a brief break before we crack on with the rules of the road. The show is only a part of the vault. Beyond the broadcast is the archive. And at eeriesvault.com you'll find our growing library of case files, first-hand accounts of the unexplained, written reports from people who lived through something strange. And we need yours. If you've carried a story for years, if you've never had the chance to put it into words, and this is where it belongs, your report will stand alongside others, building a record that may one day help us see patterns that we cannot see alone. And it's easy. Go to eeriesvault.com, open the Case Files page, and hit the Submit a Case button. Fill in the details and send it on its way. Because strange events pass quickly into silence unless someone records them. Don't let your story vanish. Put it in the vault. From the depths of the vault, this is Eerie's Vault Live. Every Friday at 9 p.m. GMT, the lines are open. UFOs, aliens, ghosts, strange creatures, time slips, encounters you cannot explain. If you've seen something unusual, if something has haunted you, followed you, or simply left you wondering, then this is your place to tell it. Call in and share your story. You can watch the show live on YouTube or stream it directly at eeriesvault.com. And if you're too shy to call, then you can email ahead of the show at eeriesvault@gmail.com, and I will read your story out for you on air. That's Eerie's Vault Live, Friday nights, 9 p.m. GMT. Be part of it. For those of you who want to go deeper, there is the Eerie's Vault Patreon. Here you'll find the evidence. Original newspaper clippings, forgotten publications, rare documents. You'll see the raw material behind the stories, and you'll gain access to exclusive videos, some filmed on location at the very places we discuss, and you'll be able to watch private follow-up videos to the cases already covered on the main channel. It's not just about watching here, it's about joining the search, and by supporting the vault, you help to keep the archive alive, help uncover more material, and help to bring these stories into the light. And if you've ever wondered what all these marks are on this map here, well, patrons get access to this interactive encounters map to peruse at their leisure. It gets updated regularly and will grow to be one of the most comprehensive encounters maps in the world. If you've ever wanted to be closer to the investigation, if you've ever wanted to see what lies behind the curtain, then Patreon is where it begins. And with numerous membership options, what are you waiting for? Head over to the vault. Yes, head over to the vault indeed. And speaking of the case files, we've had 3 or 4 submitted by a chap called Mike. So, Mike, thank you very much indeed for submitting those. It's beginning to grow now. It's starting to take shape. That's eeriesvault.com case files page. We've got quite a few on there now. I'm very happy with that. So, here are the rules of the road tonight then. So if you want to be on the show, obviously, as you've just heard, send the message on WhatsApp during the stream. Give a brief outline of the story or what it is you want to chat about. Don't forget, it doesn't have to be a story. You might just want to shoot the breeze about something paranormal. You might want to discuss one of my videos. You might want to ask me some questions about paranormal things. It can be anything you want. It's a talk show at the end of the day. And then you wait for my call and I will call you back. You can share stories, like I say. You can have opinions, discussions. You can talk about our special topic, which is your predictions, or our second special topic, which is ancient astronaut theory. We love stories as much as we love speculation, so we might even ask you questions as we talk, and there's nothing wrong with that. We like the discussion. No bad language, of course, no politics, no hatred. This is all about paranormal mystery, not modern madness. Use the chat to talk to each other, as you already do, and ask questions and get to know each other. That's what it's all about. By the way, the chat is locked down so that only subscribers can comment. And if you're too shy to call, then you can email eeriesvault@gmail.com with the subject live show story and let me know what it is you want to say. And of course, by participating in a call, you're consenting to being broadcast on YouTube. Of course you are, because that's what we're doing here. So I don't share your number. I don't share your identity. You don't get added as a contact, and your messages vanish within 24 hours any day. So have fun, and just don't say anything that you wouldn't want on YouTube forever. Now, I can see in the WhatsApp queue here, someone by the name of Fleur has contacted me. Now, what I'm going to do, Fleur, I'm going to put a phone number into this message to reply to you, and I'm going to tell everybody what this number is in a moment, but I would like you to be the first person to test out our new national phone number. I believe that's the right way to say it, national phone number. And you're going to like this. Okay, so, well, I'll explain it later. Let's test it, Fleur. So I've just sent you a phone number on WhatsApp. I would be very grateful if you would be our first person to test that phone line. You should get a rather robotic voice, which I will fix later, that says something like, "Welcome to Eerie's Vault Live," or something like that. "Please hold the line," and then it should ring. And then you should get through to Eerie's Vault and our new phone number. And the reason I've done this is because I realised that not everybody's going to have WhatsApp, are they? So I probably was excluding a part of the audience that I didn't need to exclude with this. So hence I've gone for the national number. Is that right? National number? I'll tell you what it is after we've tested it. We'll see if Fleur can call me on that number that I've just put in there. Jan Goodwin says, "Hello," and hello there, Jan. "Among the many creepy stories from the UK, the story of the Sandown Clown, all colours Sam, really freaks me out for some reason. Do you know what? I think that's my favourite. I think it's my favourite one. I also like the, not dwarfs, what are they called? The gnomes, the Wollerton gnomes. I think that's an excellent story myself. But the Sandown Clown thing really is up there at the top of my list of the ones that I like. Fleur, if you can just let me know if you've got that phone number come through or not. And then if we've got difficulties, we can always get somebody else to test it if we need to. So a story about what happened when you were 7 years old. We'd like to hear it. So if you can try calling in on the number just to test it, That'd be really good. I think the thing about the Sandown Clown one is that it's just so innocuous in a way. There's no threat as such. There's no crashed craft, and I don't know, he's quite a sad sort of whimsical character, isn't he? But the very nature of the encounter, that it's a tall, adult man-looking thing interacting with two kids, getting them to come inside his hut and things like that. Oh, look out, we have the phone call. It just makes it very weird. Good evening, you're on Eerie's Vault Live.
Hello, Eerie.
It works. It works.
It does.
Fleur.
It certainly does.
Congratulations on being the first person to call on our brand new line. I'm very excited about this. Very excited.
I'm really excited as well because it's a lot easier phoning than using WhatsApp.
Yep, and I think it will be for a lot of other people. So let's get a gauge of this in the chat. I assume Fleur and I are both audible to all of you guys, and I'll just have a cheeky check on my phone here as well. If you can just say something else, Fleur, then we'll get going.
I'm very interested in the theories that you've come up of talking about the pyramids and such.
Oh,
I really
yes.
enjoyed that. Coincidentally, my grandfather was stationed in Egypt during the war.
Really? Okay.
He said he came back. He said, "I don't like sand."
You don't like sand? Yes, I imagine you see enough of it when you've been there for about a week. So yeah. So what is this story then about a situation that happened when you were about 7 years old?
Well, it started about nighttime. My mother had got me ready for bed. I'd gotten dressed, put in pajamas. Little 7-year-olds are. They're tired. They want to go to bed. So my mother put me in bed. She took me up and she closed the curtains. And I had just started to fall asleep when I had this strange feeling that something wasn't right. So I got up and I was like, well, what is this? What's this? Why do I feel like something's happening? What is going on? So I got up and I sensed that I should go and look out the window and look at some trees outside. For reference, our houses were attached. And at the side of my neighbour's house, they had a fence which was surrounded by conifer trees.
Okay.
And at the side of them, there was what we used to call the banking, which was just a big mass of trees and such, which went up to a big main road because you could catch the bus on the top. So I watched it for a couple of minutes and was like, oh, well, there's nothing there, but something's telling me that I should watch out of this window and make sure there's nothing wrong. So I did. I kept waking up, going to sleep, waking up, going to sleep, checking out the window. Again, something was telling me I should look outside and that I should look at my neighbour's conifers. Whatever reason, I didn't know. I didn't know what it was. I was only a child. So eventually I couldn't sleep at all. So I would get up and down, stand on the bed, because obviously I was a very small child. I had to stand on the bed to view the outside. And eventually I just couldn't sleep. So I tried to lay on top of the covers, lay at the end of the bed, lay on top of the bed.
Yeah.
I did that for hours on end, or what felt like I was in my childbirth. And eventually I fell asleep and I suddenly just woke up and I could see something was going off outside. All I could see was a bright light and flickering. And so I jumped up and I went to go and see what this light was. And it turns out that my intuition was right because the trees at the side of my neighbour's house were on fire and their conifers were on fire.
Oh, God.
So I was like, well, fire, not good, you know. You teach, if there's a fire, you should tell your parents. So I stood on the bed up and then jumped down to open the door and went, Mom. So my mother came upstairs. She wasn't very happy. She said, I'm watching the television. You're supposed to be asleep. What's the matter? Mom, there's a fire outside. And she said, what? So she went to the window and she just told me, stay inside, I'll go out. So she went outside with my sister, and immediately she realized that somebody had set the trees on fire. Somebody had set the trees, and the grass that year was quite dry. They'd set the grass and the trees on fire, and it was creeping up to my neighbour's house.
So this was arson then? This was an arson attack?
Yep. And I'd not known, and I wasn't particularly worried because I know that, you know, when you're 7-year-old, you think, my mum's going to know what to do.
Yeah.
She's my mother.
Yeah.
My life's in her hands. So she phoned the fire brigade, and all I remember was seeing the blue lights, the fire engine, and if I remember, I saw the hose, but I didn't see the fire engine because I'd fallen back asleep again. But this time I didn't wake up until the morning. And obviously my mother worked morning, so my sister took me to school. And when I came back, she'd sat at the table while we're having dinner. She said, how did you know that there was a fire? How did you know there was a fire going to happen? Because, you know, obviously, she said, well, did you know? I said, no. Nobody had told me that there was going to be a fire. I didn't even know. So I asked, well, who set it? You know, obviously I was a child. I said, who set it on fire? And she said, well, one of the neighborhood kids. Obviously, there was a lot of older children living in the area, much older than me, and they'd gone and set it on fire. And I couldn't tell my mother why I'd got that intuition. It just happened. I can't explain it even till this day.
You just sort of knew. So you didn't hear a voice telling you then. You just sort of knew something was going to happen.
No voices telling me anything. Just it was as though something was pulling me to that direction. It wasn't telling me to do anything else but stand up. About every 10, 20 minutes, I would go, stand, look at exactly in the directions to where the fire was. And my mother just said, well, it's a good job you did, because if not, then the neighbour's house would have burned down, and it's likely that it would have spread to the others as well.
Of course, and your own, in fact.
Yep, it could have spread to our own, the neighbours. And it was extra scary because our neighbours had a wooden fence. Ours wasn't surrounded by a wooden fence. So it could have crept up to their house much quicker than what it could have done with ours. And there was a lot of elderly people around as well, because even they said, well, how did you know? And I couldn't tell you, Eerie, how I knew. It was just something telling me. And obviously, I'd not watched anything about fire engines, nothing about arson, nothing to suggest that I knew what was going on. It just happened.
And I think Darren Jump in the chat has just latched on to probably a key point here, and he says you had a young, clear mind.
Yep.
And we're probably open to the connection that I'm sure we all have with our universe. I mean, we're from the universe. We're of the universe. I'm sure we have a connection to it. It's just a case of whether you're listening or not. And I think that what Darren said there is probably a key element to the why question.
I do believe that something or something out there was telling me to look, because even my neighbours didn't notice. They were fast asleep. Nobody would have known what was going on until I had eventually called my mother to let her know.
Yeah, or until it was too late.
Yeah, if I'd have not, in fact, she said if you'd have not called us or shouted to us, we wouldn't have known until the fire came raging up to us.
Yeah.
And because it was quite dry, the area that we lived didn't get much rain at the time. It would have spread so much quicker.
Yeah, that's right.
And it was awesome because because they were much older than me. I didn't know these children enough to know that they would do it. I was only 7. They were about 10-year-olds, so much older than me. And I was one of these children where I didn't really play with anyone older than me. I just played with people who were the same age as me.
Sure. It's a strange thing how sort of connected we can be. We spoke last week, I think it was, about that sort of quantum entanglement of things vibrating in frequency, and I'm sure there's a lot more to our perception and the way the universe communicates back to us. But speaking of dry environments, then what's your take on the pyramids? Then let's go circle around to that.
Well, my take on the pyramids is that while I do believe that they were built for a monument to a pharaoh or a tomb of a pharaoh, I do believe that they were built in such a way that isn't always fully or very well explained, because they do have connections to, I believe that there's a connection to a star in Sirius,
yes,
the dog star.
I believe so.
I do believe there's a connection to that.
Yeah.
And it's possible, like I said, that you can imagine a satellite dish or a satellite, like a satellite dish. It's possible that they could be satellite dishes.
Receivers or antenna of some sort,
yeah,
maybe.
Or an antenna, maybe to a civilization.
Possibly so.
But it's also interesting that we found different, how would I call it, hieroglyphics within pyramids that seem to suggest things like helicopters.
Yes.
And different things. It's like, where would that be? Because again, ancient Egypt. It's ancient Egypt. Why would they know about helicopters?
And that's what we're taught.
Why would they know about those
exactly. But that's what we're taught at school, isn't it? That it was ancient Egypt, and therefore they were not advanced. But maybe there's just another kind of advanced that we're not aware of. I like the theory of the tones, certain musical tones that can be generated that will levitate these enormous blocks into the air and move them around. That I find really fascinating.
Oh, like a Tesla coil.
That sort of way. It's similar to that, yeah, where they use vibration to actually manipulate the objects, rather than the old pictures that we used to see of a million slaves being whipped by a pharaoh and dragging them on tree trunks,
It certainly seems to be a bit more of a reasonable explanation, because, I mean, it could be. I know that they used a type of electrical current. I believe in the 1930s, there was a way in I think it was in America in the 1930s. They had what they called a floating ball, where they used electromagnetic fields to use a bowl. To float a bowl,
okay.
And it was hot enough to cook an egg.
Oh, right.
So maybe that's how the Egyptians did it, but they just didn't catalogue it, or they just didn't write it down because they weren't sure how it worked. I mean,
or they did write it down and we just couldn't read it, right? because it said snake, donkey, tree, apple, something instead. Yeah.
Because I mean, we didn't actually find out how to read hieroglyphs until the discovery of the Rosetta Stone. We didn't. So maybe they did write it down in hieroglyphics, but we just haven't discovered the hieroglyphics as to how, or we just haven't discovered the papyrus scrolls.
It's a heck of a mystery, isn't it?
Information.
And I think we'll never know. I think that's the thing. But you know what I sometimes think? When the time comes, and I don't want to get morbid on the channel, but when the time comes when we have to leave this place, do we find out the answers to all these things? That's what I wonder.
It's an interesting part, because I don't know whether you believe this. Some people have said that sometimes when they are when a person is due to pass away, they somehow do gain some type of knowledge. They do tend to be a lot calmer. They do speak a bit more theoretically when they're passing away. I for reference, I'm actually not very well. I have ME, or chronic fatigue syndrome, but I did used to work within the care sector. And sometimes I notice people who were due to pass away, their thoughts were very cohesive. They were more mathematically or scientifically minded.
Strange, isn't it?
When that time came along. Yeah, it was just something that I noticed when I worked in care, that it kind of struck me that patients would be far more, people who had dementia and such, their thought process was more scientific. It was more well thought out. Sometimes they would pose questions that were very hard to answer, or they answered things that previously they had never mentioned to their family. So really pressing questions that they had never revealed before.
It's a wonder, isn't it? It's a wonder. Yeah. And I think, well, we'll all find out one day, of course, but we won't. Well, maybe we will be able to tell each other. Who knows? But until that day, we just live in the shadow of the mystery, don't we? Fleur, thank you very much for being the first person on our brand new line. I'm so happy that it works, because it's taken me all week to sort it out. So
it really does. It works really well. It really does.
Good.
I'm going to definitely be using this, because it's so much easier to use.
That's good to hear. That was the plan. That was excellent. Fleur, thank you ever so much once again. Thank you.
Thank you.
Cheerio.
Thank you, Eerie. Thank you. You have a good day.
I will. Thank you.
Bye.
And there we go, ladies and gentlemen. That is the new number. Now, I'm seeing a heck of a lot. A heck of a lot, that is, of discussion about Sam the Sandown Clown. And you know what? I would love to talk to some of you about that. I really, really would. I would love to have a chat with some people about that. So here, now that we've tested it, now that Fleur has been our guinea pig, okay, aside from the WhatsApp number, which is going to be useful now for our overseas listeners, there is also a UK number that you can use to call the show, and you're going to like this, okay? So I'm going to give you the number now, and if you want to write this down or pop it in your phone or whatever, and I'll record a bumper that gives out the number as well as the other one and the email address. But the UK number is 0141 673 3743. That's 0141 673 3747. And for those of you who are quick off the mark, you will notice that if you follow those numbers on the phone keypad, the phone number is 0141 Mr. Eerie. Got an encounter story that you want to share? Ever seen a UFO or a ghost? Are you a time traveler or a non-human humanoid? Or maybe you've just got an opinion about a known encounter that you would like to share. Whichever it may be, simply send a WhatsApp message to 07903 775 899 to enter the callback queue. That's 07903 775 899. Just give me a brief outline of what you want to say and a name that you'd like me to use on air, and then stay ready for my callback. Or if you're more on the shy side, you can still take part by emailing eeriesvault@gmail.com with your story, and I will read it on air for you. And of course, in addition to that, there is, as I say, the new number 0141 67 33743, which is 0141 Mr. Eerie. I quite liked that. I've been waiting to tell you about that for weeks, but I've had a heck of a time setting up the soft phone and a PBX, if anybody knows what they are, which still doesn't work, so call queuing might be a problem, but I like to try things. I don't like to be defeated by particularly by technology. So those are your options for getting in touch on the show. Now, over to the emails. Well, actually, before I go over to the emails, I can see, I don't know if Mr. Coop Box is listening tonight, but we had a very interesting conversation last week about trans-instrumental communication with Mr. Coop Box, and I can see here that you've probably tried to send me something on the WhatsApp, and it will have vanished from my side. So I can see that you have sent something, but I cannot say what it is. So if you're wanting it looked like it might have been a video potentially. I won't have seen that because I tend to only look at this on a Friday before the show, and I switch it off fairly soon afterwards. So apologies if you think I've been ignoring you. I really haven't. By all means, send it again tonight whilst we're on air. That's not a problem. Okay, we've got 4 emails here to take a look at, so we'll begin with these. The first is from Richard, who says, I finally sat down and typed out a strange story that happened, and I thought you might find it interesting. I haven't heard anything quite like this, but I'm not an avid strange phenomenon follower, so it might be a known thing. It didn't sound like electrical interference, etc., etc. I won't spoil this. See what you think. Perhaps it's just some coincidences. I'm enjoying your videos. Keep up the good work. Thank you. Right. I certainly will. And we've just hit the top of the hour, haven't we? So before we launch into Richard's story, it is time for the TNT break, as we like to call it at Eerie Towers. I'll be back in 4 or 5 minutes. The show is only a part of the vault. Beyond the broadcast is the archive. And at eeriesvault.com you'll find our growing library of case files, first-hand accounts of the unexplained, written reports from people who lived through something strange. And we need yours. If you've carried a story for years, if you've never had the chance to put it into words, and this is where it belongs. Your report will stand alongside others, building a record that may one day help us see patterns that we cannot see alone. And it's easy. Go to eeriesvault.com, open the Case Files page, and hit the Submit a Case button. Fill in the details and send it on its way. Because strange events pass quickly into silence unless someone records them. Don't let your story vanish. Put it in the vault. From the depths of the vault, this is Eerie's Vault Live. Every Friday at 9 p.m. GMT, the lines are open. UFOs, aliens, ghosts, strange creatures, time slips, encounters you cannot explain. If you've seen something unusual, if something has haunted you, followed you, or simply left you wondering, then this is your place to tell it. Call in and share your story. You can watch the show live on YouTube or stream it directly at eeriesvault.com. And if you're too shy to call, then you can email ahead of the show at eeriesvault@gmail.com, and I will read your story out for you on air. That's Eerie's Vault Live, Friday nights, 9 p.m. GMT. Be part of it. For those of you who want to go deeper, there is the Eerie's Vault Patreon. Here you'll find the evidence, original newspaper clippings, forgotten publications, rare documents. You'll see the raw material behind the stories, and you'll gain access to exclusive videos, some filmed on location at the very places we discuss, and you'll be able to watch private follow-up videos to the cases already covered on the main channel. It's not just about watching here, it's about joining the search, and by supporting the vault, you help to keep the archive alive, help uncover more material, and help to bring these stories into the light. And if you've ever wondered what all these marks are on this map here, well, patrons get access to this interactive encounters map to peruse at their leisure. It gets updated regularly and will grow to be one of the most comprehensive encounters maps in the world. If you've ever wanted to be closer to the investigation, if you've ever wanted to see what lies behind the curtain, then Patreon is where it begins. And with numerous membership options, what are you waiting for? Head over to the vault. Got an encounter story that you want to share? Ever seen a UFO or a ghost? Are you a time traveler or a non-human humanoid? Or maybe you've just got an opinion about a known encounter that you would like to share. Whichever it may be, simply send a WhatsApp message to 07903 775 899 to enter the callback queue. That's 07903 775 899. Just give me a brief outline of what you want to say and a name that you'd like me to use on air, and then stay ready for my callback. Or if you're more on the shy side, you can still take part by emailing eeriesvault@gmail.com with your story, and I will read it on air for you. And of course, the new number, 0141 637. That's wrong. 0141 673 3747. And as I say, if you follow 673 3743 on your phone keypad, it spells out Mr. Eerie. That's 0141 673 3743. I'll just pop that in the chat again as well. There we go. Now, what I haven't tested yet, we'll get to this story in a second. What I haven't tested yet is that I think I may now also be able to host multiple callers at once, which might lead to some entertaining situations, might it? But I may be able to host multiple callers at once, which would be very good. Something I tried to do with Richard Freeman when we interviewed him. I wanted you guys to be able to talk directly to him and ask you questions, but I just couldn't get the technology going up. Yes, you can report potential sightings of the ghost underpants, potential ones, Buster, on that number. Actual ones must be reported through carrier pigeon, however. Now, the doorbell incident. So this is Richard's story that we started just before the break. And Richard writes, in 1994, my partner and I bought our first house, a semi-detached cottage in a village where both our families had lived for many decades. My mum was well known in the village, and she had many friends of her generation. Mum would mention a couple called Bill and Doreen, not their real names. Bill was a bit of a novelty for Mum. He's Canadian, she'd say, in a fancy that sort of way. Anyway, we were living happily in our house for about 15 years or so, when one day the doorbell stopped working. Now, the doorbell came with the house, so it was pretty old, so fair enough. Time for a new one. Oddly, the doorbell was on the back door, at the side of the house, really, and that made me wonder if it was worth even getting a new one, because people ringing it would only really be friends and family who knew to come around the back in the first place. Which door it was on is irrelevant for this story, apart from the fact that it made me think I'll just get a cheap replacement. Basically, I bought the cheapest one I could find on eBay. It came, I fitted it, no problem. It had one tune, probably the same basic tune you'd find in most doorbells. It played an 8-note tune using 4 different notes. Fast forward a few years and we get new next door neighbours. And you've guessed it, it was Bill and Doreen. We didn't know that Bill was ill, but we didn't see him around the place. I assume now that he was bedridden or perhaps in hospital. I would see Doreen when she walked their little dog and we would chat, and she seemed fine. One evening, we were sitting in the living room when the doorbell rang. We instantly looked at each other, not understanding what was happening. It wasn't just that it was still light outside, and from the sofa we could see through to the dining room window to just outside the back door. Nobody was there. It was more the fact that this basic one-tune doorbell was managing to play the American national anthem. The 12-note opening bit used 7 different notes. We were freaked out. I took the doorbell down to get the make and model number from it, and I researched the best I could and found that it was only supposed to play the one simple tune because of its very basic microchip. 1 or 2 days later, we found out that sadly Bill had passed away. We instantly linked the weird doorbell incident with the timing of his death. But Bill was Canadian, wasn't he? Well, a few days passed, and we discovered that Bill was, in fact, born in the USA. I don't know why my mum thought he was a Canadian. I never had the chance to ask her. We lived in that house for a few more years, but moved away in 2019. Over those few years, I tussled with the notion of telling Doreen what had happened. I decided not to. I just didn't think she'd have taken it very well. We occasionally go back to visiting our remaining relatives, and I still think about going to see her if she's still around. I just don't know, says Richard. Well, that's an odd one, isn't it? So a doorbell that shouldn't be able to play the national anthem plays the American national anthem at the same point it would seem that the American neighbour is passing into the beyond. Well, it's a weird one indeed. Thank you very much for that one. What else do we have in the inbox? Now, this one. Okay, this one. Oh, this one. So you remember last week our encounter from John with the blonde, blue-eyed alien lady. Well, there is more. Now, this involves looking at a photograph, okay, which if you can do both, if you can do this without leaving the stream, then over on eeriesvault.com, on the Singularity page, there are 2 images that I've uploaded, 2 photographs, actually 4, but it's 2 on one and 2 on the other. That's over on the Singularity page, and that's what this next email is about. This is from John Mooner, who says, "Take a close look at this rather remarkable photograph. These are real extraterrestrial entities that were captured high above the town, floating stationary in their anti-gravitational craft when I photographed them with my camera, which was a Sony HX300, if I'm not mistaken. The alien to the right was looking out from a large window and seemed totally unaware that I was observing it through the viewfinder of my camera, when suddenly a small reptilian alien put its head around the side of a wall inside the craft, like it could somehow telepathically sense me watching them from a safe distance. Goodness me, I'd like it to be a very, very safe distance, I have to say. I immediately took this photograph, capturing them before they turned off all the lights in their craft, leaving only the outline of their ship visible in the moonlit night sky. After a while, they soon flew off, heading in the direction of Torquay. I was left with a photograph that shows 2 different extraterrestrial beings standing within their anti-gravitational craft. This is quite remarkable, and I have done a reanalysis of the photograph and have cut out the aliens removing the background, showing greater detail of how they actually looked. I seem to remember that it was around 11:15 when this sighting took place, and I was looking out from my open bedroom window at the time. I can still remember being really excited that aliens were real. Now, since this encounter, I have gone on to witness and photograph thousands of UFOs in my area of Devon. Unfortunately, however, I lost this photograph and had been looking for it for several years now, so when I finally found it again on a hard drive that I had safely stored away, I was elated and very excited to share it online with the UFO community. I have lived a life encountering these beings and their incredible technological craft for decades now, and this photograph is yet further proof of their existence and continued observations of us here on Earth. This photograph was taken back sometime in 2015 in Newton Abbot. I'm an abductee and have had lifelong contact with these entities. Now, as I say, this is on eriesvault.com on the Singularity page. I'm going to see if I can, without lifting the curtain on myself, as it were, I'm going to see if I can bring in the image for you to see. So if I just waffle a little bit whilst I try and do this. So let's try and find this. Oh, there we go. Right. If I bring that into the picture. Okay. I'm going to transition to this. And if I move it up a bit, transition again. Okay. I've got permission from the emailer to do this, so I'll leave it a few seconds. I believe there's a bit of a delay, you see. So I'll leave it a few seconds so that you can see what I've been sent. And it's... I do not know what to make of it, really. It's difficult to make out, but now the context of it makes more sense to me. I'm wondering, can you see that yet? It doesn't look like it. What can you see at the moment? Can you still see the text that says Eerie's Vault Live? Or can you see these alien photos? Oh, you can see them, can't you? You can see them, yeah. Look at those. Now, that one on the right... I mean, they're both a bit frightening, aren't they? You know, what do we think of those? You know what? I would love to take some calls from people who would like to chat about what they are seeing right now. That's 0141 673 3743. 0141 Mr. Eerie. We're going to leave those on screen for a while. And I shall prime the switchboard. If anybody has an opinion about those, anybody wants to chat about them, even if it's just a one-liner and you want to say it on air, let's hear it. You can call up and you can do that. I'll leave those on screen. Yeah, I don't like the look of them, if I'm honest. I'm just going to move it down a bit, actually. If I move it down, transition again. So there's the first two... or rather the first photograph. So I think the top left is the photograph, okay? And obviously then the other ones are edited versions of that to help us see what's in them. I couldn't tell you what the first one was without the assistance of the red rings, as it were, and the benefit of the email telling me what this was. And once you look at these in the context of it's an alien, let's just switch back to this. When you look at them in the context of that's an alien, then goodness me, That one on the right certainly is alien looking, isn't it? As I say, I would welcome calls from you guys to talk about that. I would really, really love to talk to people about Sam the Sandown Clown. Just what we think of it, how weird it is, how cool it is, how like unusual and strange it is, all that stuff. Don't forget, you don't need a story to call. You can just talk about these things with me. That's what this show is about. I shall move on to let's just remove those. Let's remove that again so we can get back to in fact, if I move it down and then transition back, there we are. Let's move on to so Philip, who spoke to us last week about the ghost lady in Liverpool, if you recall that. And you know, I'm kicking myself because I was in Liverpool on what date was I down in Liverpool? On the 31st, so that's probably Sunday just gone. I was in Liverpool and I was about 15 minutes away from the very park in Whiston, where Philip had his encounter. And I had every plan in my head after I had finished what I was doing that I was going to head over to that park and I was going to film it and take a look. And you know, by the end of the day that I'd finished what I was doing, I was so tired and ready to just go to bed that we just came straight home. And I never did visit it, unfortunately. However, there will be other chances to do so. I will be in Liverpool again. So, Philip has said, thank you for having me on your live show this past Friday and allowing me to share my encounter. It was a good one, I have to say. Additionally, I watched with great interest regarding your Rainford humanoid video. After all, Rainford is just a few miles north of Whiston, and yes, I'd like to go and see that place too, actually. During my White Lady account, says Philip, I referenced a book by John Brooks, and having recently picked up the book again, I noticed there was actually an entry for Rainford. In fact, it mentions paranormal activity in the Golden Lion pub, which is the starting point of the Rainford humanoid story. It mentions paranormal activity in this pub, and there's an entry attached to this, and it says, you cannot ascertain if there is any link between this and the humanoid encounter. Of course, it may be purely coincidental. However, I do recall a recent conversation on your live show that mentioned attachment and how strange phenomena can travel with unsuspecting victims. That's right. So the Rainford humanoid, and if you haven't heard of the Rainford humanoid, I'm going to just get the link for you. It's one of my early videos which discussed the case. So I'm going to pop that in the chat here. You can look at that one if you want to. But essentially, 4 guys, I think it was, going home from a pub. They went the back roads, probably because they'd had a few, although apparently not. But that's usually why people have to go the back way, isn't it? They take a wrong turn at a crossroads in this farm track, middle of nowhere. And as they turn the corner, the headlights of the car hit this 7-foot hulking silver-suited thing in the middle of the road. The guy, I think is it the guy driving, or one of them has an asthma attack in the car. They floor the car, they reverse, they get the hell out of there, report it to a farmer down the road, who then reports it to the police. Well, that is the Rainford humanoid. Now, it began at the Golden Lion pub, which where they'd all been drinking, and Philip sent me this extract that says that very pub was actually built as a farmhouse, and later became a girls' boarding school before finally becoming a pub. It's got 2 ghosts, one being that of a schoolgirl who was killed in the 19th century, and the other of a soldier, the son of the landlady at the time, who was killed in the Second World War. So, as he says, no direct relation to the humanoid case, but it just was useful. Of interest, wasn't it? So thank you for that, Philip. I do like finding out these little extra things. And you know, that's what's been one of the cool things about beginning this channel, is that I get to tell these stories again, because a lot of these have been heard before, but I like to put my spin on these stories. But I get things back. I get emails, I get Facebook messages, you know, I get things coming back to me, which is really cool, and is again an unexpected consequence of beginning this this show. So I'm very happy with that. Now, our next email, and our final email, of course, because I don't have any more, I don't think. So I'm going to be relying on you guys now to call in, because you know how it goes if we don't have the calls. I'm going to be relying on you guys. But this is from Robert, who's from VA. Is that Virginia, United States? What's VA? Or would that be VG? Robert says, I experienced this series of incidents in 2009 within the northeastern US. And you know, this is cool as well, that I've got listeners in America and Canada and Chile and all over the place. It's wonderful. Robert says, I went to visit my daughter and her family one evening. They live in a rural area that is quite dark at night due to lack of ambient lighting. Jan, thank you for confirming. Yes, it's Virginia. There we go. I exited my car and began to walk across the yard towards their house. The darkness was such that I couldn't see anything before me. However, I was familiar with the property. As I was walking, I came to an abrupt stop, raising my arms in front of me, not by conscious choosing, but my body sensed something before me. Thinking it might be a yard toy, I kicked outward, but there was nothing there. I immediately heard a light rustling, a distant but approaching me rapidly, and the sensing of my path being blocked grew stronger. Now, isn't it odd that this email, now this came in on the 4th, this came in yesterday, is very thematic with Fleur's sense of something about to happen, isn't it? This sense of this guy's path being blocked grew stronger. He continues, I then saw from across the opposite end of the darkened yard a figure moving towards me, and this figure was moving so fast that it appeared as a blur. Note, it was both approaching and departing. It was only when it passed me, and was for a split second aligned with me on my left, that I got a close glimpse. But for a nanosecond it was headed straight at me, and it only veered to my left at the last moment, and its description was as follows. Now, remember, before you hear this description, remember that this thing has been causing a light rustling and has been moving so fast that it was a blur. Okay? Robert estimates it was 8 feet tall. This is based on comparing his own height of 6'3". However, the figure glided and was leaning forward at an almost 45-degree angle. It did not contact the ground. It wore a classic monk-type robe, brown with black smudges, and the material was worn and tattered, and the hood drastically draped down over the facial area, covering any facial features. In passing, it never looked at me. Its body posture and head remained straight ahead, but again in a leaning forward, slanted position. Its movement in passing me created an audible swishing noise. I stepped forward whilst looking in the direction of the house. This one step triggered their motion, which snapped on their floodlights, but I kept watching what just passed me until it disappeared into the darkness. Total time after passing me and then losing sight of it, I estimate it to be 3 to 4 seconds. Now, when I entered the house, I attempted to tell my daughter what just happened. She held her finger up to her lips, and in a very low voice she said, "Don't say anything around Steve. He's already nervous about us living so close to the old barn." Now, the note here is that Steve grew up believing that the barn was haunted. Still trying to get a grip, I said, "Okay, it's probably my imagination." I gave her what I went out to take and said I had to scoot on a few more errands. Sorry, I butchered that sentence. I gave her what I went out to take. Oh, I see. So I'd gone to give her some gift or something, and then said, I've got to go on a few more errands. We hugged, and I walked, this time, across the well-lit yard to my car. I got in, and instead of going in the direction of what passed me, I went the opposite way. After a few minutes, I saw the lights of a local sheets store. I whipped in, found a parking spot, and started off thinking about just what it was I'd experienced. This I knew. It really happened. What I saw was what all of the pictures and literature throughout my life had depicted. The Grim Reaper. So why am I still alive? Why did it turn from me at the last second? That was Saturday evening. On Sunday morning, I woke up at exactly 5:30 a.m., which was unusual for me. Also unusual was that I awoke fully, no momentary grogginess. Bright-eyed I was. I moved to the edge of the bed and watched the early sun streaming in through the half-closed slats. The room was silent, and before I could stand, a long, single musical note from a trumpet came directly from the right corner of the room. It started low, but it rose in volume, and it lasted about 5 to 7 seconds. Then the room was again dead silent. I didn't have to look outside to determine a source, because the trumpet sound was generated inside the room. The acoustics of the sound made that determination absolutely unmistakable. But no one and nothing was there to visibly generate that noise. I went through Sunday encountering several people who I almost told about the trumpet note or even the sighting of the entity, but I thought better of that, and I kept it to myself, feeling that before blurting things of that nature out to those around me, well, I wanted to figure it out first. At 6 p.m. Sunday, I watched the movie The Untouchables, and halfway through I called my dad, who lived in the family home 45 minutes away. I knew he liked the movie, so I checked in. After talking for a while, I said, "Hey, I want to tell you something that happened to me early this morning. You're the first person I've told, and yeah, you're going to think I'm nuts." And surprisingly, instead of laughing, there was a short pause from his end. "Okay," he said, "you tell me what happened to you, and then I'll tell you what happened to me this morning." And he told me that around 3 a.m. that morning he was awoken by the doorbell but it had an unusual sound to it, like it was only partly pressed in and then released. It was followed seconds later with the identical sound. I said, "Who was it?" And he said that he didn't go and see, he stayed where he was. It was damn odd, he said. I wasn't going to move from bed. Very unusual for a dad. He's a very paranormal guy. 5 days later, I received a call from my stepsister telling me that my dad had just died. He hadn't been ill, hadn't been diagnosed with any conditions. He was 79. It was a heart attack. So I'm left with questions. My dad and I were the same size and closely resembled each other. We also shared the first name, the same first, last, and middle name. Did this entity resembling a reaper mistake me for my dad and course correct at the last few seconds? Was the doorbell ringing at his house a reaper entity waiting for Dad to answer the door, at which point Dad would have died there and then? Was the trumpet in the bedroom an announcement of Dad's impending death? 13 years later, and the answers I come up with only cause discomfort. I wish it hadn't occurred, but it did. Well, Robert, that is a very well-written piece for a start, and that is a heck of a story. Now, I can't imagine just seeing something that size at that speed to begin with, and that it reminded me of the Beast of Bowlam Lake, actually. The barely solid, huge, hulking figure dashing around really, really quickly. But then for that twist, the Grim Reaper twist, goodness me, that, what an encounter, really. And, you know, for all the UFO and humanoid stuff and the cryptids, you know that's the stuff I love. But that is really, that's an impressive encounter, particularly because the person who submitted that is still wrestling with the questions of what all that means. And for us here, we can listen to what we call stories. And when I say stories, you guys know that I don't mean that in a sort of derogatory way, if you know what I mean. It's story suggests made up, doesn't it? But that's not what I mean when I say stories. Encounters, reports, whatever you want to call them. But when we hear these, we hear several on a Friday night, don't we? We hear several a week on the channel. I go through a lot of these stories and researching them and all of that. And some of them you come away with a sense of wonder. Some of them you come away with confusion. But none of them happened to me, as it were. As the observer of these reports, none of these happened to me. And the hardest thing of all in all of this is not believing that things can be weird, because that's easy to do. It's not getting an answer, because I'm quite resigned to the fact that we probably won't get answers, only more questions. But the hardest thing about all of these, and that one in particular, is putting yourself in the storyteller's shoes. Hopefully when I tell you these stories, I can conjure up imagery for you. But something 8 feet tall, whizzing past you in robes. Still visible when the light came on, by the way. That really is an incredible encounter. Thank you very much indeed for that one. Now, we're into the last 20 minutes of the show, so as a little encouragement and to save my voice, let's give you the what I call the call to action cue one more time, and then I'll give you the new number again. Got an encounter story that you want to share? Ever seen a UFO or a ghost? Are you a time traveller or a non-human humanoid? Or maybe you've just got an opinion about a known encounter that you would like to share. Whichever it may be, simply send a WhatsApp message to 07903 775 899 to enter the callback queue. That's 07903 775 899. Just give me a brief outline of what you want to say and a name that you'd like me to use on air, and then stay ready for my callback. Or if you're more on the shy side, you can still take part by emailing eeriesvault@gmail.com with your story, and I will read it on air for you. And there we are. That's how you do it. That's how you get on the show, and that's how you save Eerie's voice for a bit. For the last 20 minutes of the show, you can leave a WhatsApp message, and I'll give you a call back. Or probably UK people. I don't know how this will work overseas, but for the UK people, certainly there is a new number, and it is 0141 673 3743, and that is 0141 Mr. Eerie. Yes, Catman, by all means, if you want to get in touch with the show, you can tell us all about your experiences. And again, just for everyone, it doesn't have to be your experience that you talk about. Don't forget, still would love to chat to people about Sam the Clown. I really would. Or the Woollerton Gnomes, or anything really. You could shoot the breeze about Bigfoot, Nessie, the Makellamabembe, the Chupacabra, aliens, poltergeists. What else have we got? The Yeti, the Ozark Howler, the Dover Demon, the what else do we have? Mapinguari, the ghostly headless horseman of Flintshire, the weird floating ghost jellyfish of Wales or somewhere over there. Anything that you want to talk about that's paranormal and weird, we can. Doesn't have to just be a story or an encounter of your own. Yes, those phone calls from the dead stories that Jan's just mentioned, they were new ones on me. I found that book just by accident. So obviously you'll have seen in the credits. Oh yes, the spectral knickers. Sorry, Buster. Yes, those damned underpants. We must get to the bottom, as it were, of those damned underpants. Yes, those phone calls from the dead. I found that book. As you can imagine, and as you can see from the credits of the videos that I do, I read a lot of books, and I read them pretty fast. And that one just came out of nowhere, and I thought, God, I've got to do these. And you know what? That video's done particularly well, more so than I thought it might do. Because sometimes when you're making videos, you always want to make a video that's going to get lots of views, right? That's how it works, because YouTube, that's what it's for. That's the point. You want to succeed at what you do. And that means sometimes you have a topic that might be interesting to myself that you feel may not be of interest to a lot of people out there, as it were. And so you skip them and you decide, well, I won't do that one this week. I'll try it I might do it as a short video or a compilation later on. And that was one of them. I thought this probably won't go down very well. But goodness me, it did. Went down particularly well, in fact. So I was glad I did that one. In the chat here, we've got, yes, Catman saying I've had a very strange things happen to me that I've never told anyone because I knew they would say it was made up or imagined. Well, you're in good company here tonight. If you do want to have a quick chat about those, you can, or you can email it in and I can read it out for you. We can do that as well. The phone calls from the dead. Jamie says, Mokele-mbembe fascinates me. Those natives knew nothing of our records of dinosaurs. Now that gets me about the Mokele-mbembe. That really does get me because these, I think, it's people like Bill Gibbons, isn't it? And I'm sure Roy Mackle has been out there quite a lot. And they will have a picture book and they'll say, point to the Mokele-mbembe for me, and they'll show them a crocodile and they say no. They'll show them a rhino and they say no. And they show them an elephant and they say no. And then they show them a sauropod dinosaur and they all just say, yep, that's it. No mysticism about it. They just, yep, that's the one. Or they'll give these guys in the forest a stick and say, draw the shape of the Mokele-mbembe in the dirt, in the earth. And they draw this saurian monster. And it baffles me because there's just no sort of impression from them that what they've just drawn shouldn't exist. You know? It's just perfectly normal. The Mokele-mbembe, did anybody ever watch that film? Oh, what was it called? Baby, I think it was called. It's pretty old now. It's a pretty old film now, but Baby. And that was about a family of these Mokele-mbembes. I'm pretty sure John Rhys-Davies was in it. It seems like the sort of film John Rhys-Davies would be in, doesn't it? Yelling from an office somewhere. I can recommend it. Definitely, I can recommend it. The chat moves very fast here. What's this one? WM says, saw a UFO once, extremely briefly, in broad daylight. My family did Ouija board when I was a kid. Oh dear. And witnessed the table lift. My late mum saw ghosts, but I've never seen one though. The Ouija board, yes, it's a stay away. It's a no from me, as they would say these days. Blazer says, how could a Mokele-mbembe stay hidden? A creature that size. Yes, and you do think that immediately, but as Jamie says, the area is enormous. It's enormous. I mean, how big is... where is it? It's not the Amazon, is it? Which one is it? Where does the Mokele-mbembe live? Let's ask Google Sensei. Where does it live? The Congo River Basin. It's enormous. It's just gigantic, and it's largely impenetrable, and it's swampy, and it's really one of those areas that is absolutely prime habitat for at least the stories of hidden creatures, you know, like mountains and forests hide Bigfoot, don't they? And swamps hide that thing down in Florida, the skunk ape, you know. These impenetrable, uncrossable places are, of course, prime habitat, aren't they, for monsters and stuff like that? Because you can never really get right in there to prove that there isn't anything. And and on a lot of these, I mean, Makele Mbembe, you know what? I think it could. You see, this is me now. This is me in a nutshell, right? I think it could be real. Because I think, why not, right? I don't come down on the side of, well, there's no this, there's no that, nobody's proven this, my feeling is, well, why not? Why not? Same for Bigfoot, why not? And that's really where I am. Now, I do have Bill Gibbons' book. I think I spoke about it briefly last week. It's not an easy read, I have to say, because Bill does just go on and on about the actual getting to the location in the book and what he's having for his tea and things like that. It's a difficult read, but one quote in that book from Roy P. Mackle, I'm just looking at it now, it says that hippos are everywhere down there, but are curiously absent from the areas where Makele Mbembe is said to be present. And again, it's magic, isn't it? It's all magic, is this stuff, you know. There's always something new coming out of Africa. That's a quote from Aristotle in this same book. What else do we have? A hilarious picture of an eyewitness sketch of Makele Mbembe. And it's the drawing in the sand. Such a long neck. It just looks like the old Diplodocus or, you know, those kind of dinosaurs. They do have some with spikes on their backs as well. In these pictures. A brontosaurus, they call it. A chap called Marcel Bobas. The animal I saw was a brontosaurus. And you know, it's hard to go there. It's hard to stay alive there, I think, because there's so much sort of war going on up and down various bits of the river that, you know, just being there is dangerous, never mind hunting for monsters in the forest, you know, where those big spiders can eat you, and there's probably snakes that are 9 million feet long. And what's that? Oh, there's that story of a snake, isn't there, where there's two guys on a helicopter flying away, and this snake rears up out of the Congo and goes for the helicopter like it's going to bite one of the skis on the helicopter. I'm sure that's in an old Arthur C. Clarke book of mine, which I've got here as well. Arthur C. Clarke's Mysterious World. Yeah. Now, the theme tune for that, by the way, if you can remember it, sort of went do-do-do, do-do-do. It was like a fanfare almost. Do-do-do-do-do. With a spinning skull on the screen. Gosh, I'm reliving my childhood now. But that theme tune, okay, believe it or not, I might have told you this before, by a chap called Alan Hawkshaw, who's actually from Leeds. He's dead now. It's the same guy who did the Countdown theme tune, the Richard Whiteley TV show. And the Dave Allen at Large theme tune, if anybody remembers that. There's a bit of trivia for you. So, Arthur C. Clarke's Mysterious World, I think it's called The Wreck of the Hesperus or something like that. And I remember going to my grandma's house, and she had a colour television, you see, and we didn't. And I would sit on this rug in front of the television. I'd sit on the floor front of this colour television, and that intro would come on, and I was transfixed. I loved it. Absolutely loved it. And, you know, I'd watch it again. I might look it up again and have another watch of it. There's always something cool on that. The Nazca lines, those episodes got me. Those Nazca lines. What's happening in the chat here? There are many eating spiders that live underground. Giant spiders. Yes, I wouldn't like that either, Buster. I don't even like small spiders, I have to say. Stay away from caves and tunnel systems. So there's another thing about the Mokele-mbembe. Now, I'm going from memory here on the book, but I'm fairly certain that there is a theory that the creature holes itself up in caves underneath the water, because it's quite a sort of thick clay, I believe, under the water, and the dinosaur, essentially, is said to tunnel under there, and there have been some really big caves found and probed, as it were, obviously with nothing being found. Do I remember the Paranormal series hosted by that priest who rode a motorbike? Yes, I do. Lionel Fanthorpe, that was. Wasn't 4T and Time. Was it just called 4T and TV or something like that? It was Lionel Fanthorpe. That's very 90s, isn't it? Very 90s. That show was, as 4T and things are, not just about paranormal things, but it was about weird objects as well, wasn't it? And, you know, I remember the Fijian mermaid thing being on it, I think. Shrunken Head. The Stones of Death Valley, that's the one, Steadbot. Well done. Yes, the Stones of Death Valley. Which, now, I don't know if any of you know this, but when I drink my tea, I drink it out of my Prisoner Cell Block H mug, right? Now, that tune, along with other Alan Hawkshaw stuff, is on Prisoner Cell Block H all the time. It's on it all the time. It's the Arthur C. Clarke music. And actually a lot of music from Leonard Nimoy's In Search Of. Now, there's something on there, I believe it's called Kinetic Research, or it might be called Fatal Error. I believe it's a Keith Mansfield track, which is used on Leonard Nimoy's In Search Of quite often. That's on Prisoner Cell Block H all the time as well. Strange how my two big interests, the weird and Prisoner Cell Block H, all seem to share that same music. And Danger Mouse did as well, as a matter of fact. If you watch Danger Mouse, there's loads of Prisoner Cell Block H music on it. Yeah, yes, it was on ITV pretty late. Pretty late at night in the 90s. Classic mug, says Aching Plums. Yes, it's a good one. It's a jolly good one. Stephen Truthseeker says, I'm sure Arthur C. Clarke said there was life on Mars. I'd have to look that up, actually. I'd have to look that up and check it out. I tend to watch Clarke's Bigfoot stuff and Yeti stuff and alien stuff. However, there's one weird episode. There are some on YouTube. They're not very good quality, unfortunately. There's one episode about globsters on YouTube, which is these masses of tissue that wash up on the beach and are probably, you know, bits of whales, but sometimes get identified as other things. Arthur C. Clarke, that was good. Strange but True, that was always good. Well, it was good-ish, wasn't it? You know, Michael Aspel trying his best. I found something today that I've never heard of. It was Mysteries with Carol Vorderman. That came up when I was researching the Sheffield incident. I wanted to see if I could find any documentary footage. So the actual introduction of today's video, introduction of that Sheffield incident video, is from Mysteries with Carol Vorderman, of all things. Yes, the Countdown Lady, that's right. It's only the trailer, however. I can't find the episode, which is a shame. And there's another TV show. Let me just find it, because you never know. You never really know, just by saying these things on air. Somebody might have these hidden away. So I'm going to just log into my newspaper archive here, and I'm going to find my Sheffield incident folder. And I'm speaking because we don't want dead air. do we? As we're talking. I go to my Sheffield incident folder, and then I look at this one here from 1999 that says, on Granada television, on Tuesday the 26th of January 1999, there was also a television show called Origin Unknown, apparently, and the synopsis for this was 7:30 at night on Tuesday the 26th of January 99, in which Will Hanrahan and Lucy Meacock, never heard of them, present a new series taking an in-depth look at the UFO phenomenon, focusing on the Northwest, which has been a hotspot for sightings for many years. The first programme explores the so-called Howden Moor mystery in the Peak District, said to be the British equivalent of the American Roswell incident, and here's from Dr. Edgar Mitchell, the Apollo 14 moonwalker, who believes alien craft have visited Earth. Unfortunately, I cannot find footage of that show, so if any of you ever find it, please let me know, because I would have included it, of course, in the video. And that's how it is when you research. Sometimes you find gold mines, sometimes you get little scraps of things like that, and sometimes all you've got is a 3-minute piece of reporting in an old UFO journal. All these things like the Bufora Journal and the Flying Saucer Review and Northern UFO News and Project Red Book and all of those old school, fanzines, essentially. A lot of them have got really short stories in them. And that's why I sometimes do these like 4 encounters in one, because they're worth telling, but there isn't that much to them, if you know what I mean. It's all fascinating. Yeah, loads of that stuff. And of course, you Patreon guys, you get to see all of those and download them and do what you want with them, don't you? It's just because I upload all the newspaper clippings that I find and any other interesting documentation. So yes, but it's all fascinating for me, all fascinating. Well, I'm glad the new phone number works. That's jolly good. We've got a couple of guest irons in the fire, so I won't announce those. I'll wait and see if they come to fruition myself. And of course, as always, thank you once again for spending your Friday evening in Eerie's vault. I'm very happy that the number works. That's good. I thought that was great. 0141 Mr. Eerie. Very American sort of way to do your phone number, isn't it? You can call us on 0141 Mr. Eerie. Yes, I love it. Thank you all. We shall see you next week in the next show, and keep an eye out for the next videos on Eerie's Vault. As always, share the channel. Share. Let everybody know about the channel. The more the merrier, I say. So good night, everybody, and try not to think about that Reaper story just before bed. The show is only a part of the vault. Beyond the broadcast is the archive. And at eeriesvault.com you'll find our growing library of case files, first-hand accounts of the unexplained, written reports from people who lived through something strange. And we need yours. If you've carried a story for years, if you've never had the chance to put it into words, and this is where it belongs, your report will stand alongside others, building a record that may one day help us see patterns that we cannot see alone. And it's easy. Go to eeriesvault.com, open the Case Files page, and hit the Submit a Case button. Fill in the details and send it on its way. Because strange events pass quickly into silence unless someone records them. Don't let your story vanish. Put it in the vault. From the depths of the vault, this is Eerie's Vault Live. Every Friday at 9 p.m. GMT, the lines are open. UFOs, aliens, ghosts, strange creatures, time slips, encounters you cannot explain. If you've seen something unusual, if something has haunted you, followed you, or simply left you wondering, then this is your place to tell it. Call in and share your story. You can watch the show live on YouTube or stream it directly at eeriesvault.com. And if you're too shy to call, then you can email ahead of the show at eeriesvault@gmail.com, and I will read your story out for you on air. That's Eerie's Vault Live, Friday nights, 9 p.m. GMT. Be part of it. For those of you who want to go deeper, there is the Eerie's Vault Patreon. Here you'll find the evidence. Original newspaper clippings, forgotten publications, rare documents. You'll see the raw material behind the stories, and you'll gain access to exclusive videos, some filmed on location at the very places we discuss, and you'll be able to watch private follow-up videos to the cases already covered on the main channel. It's not just about watching here, it's about joining the search, and by supporting the Vault, you help to keep the archive alive, help uncover more material, and help to bring these stories into the light. And if you've ever wondered what all these marks are on this map here, well, patrons get access to this interactive encounters map to peruse at their leisure. It gets updated regularly and will grow to be one of the most comprehensive encounters maps in the world. If you've ever wanted to be closer to the investigation, if you've ever wanted to see what lies behind the curtain, then Patreon is where it begins. And with numerous membership options, what are you waiting for? Head over to the Vault.